The screech of tearing metal echoed through the vast expanse of open space, vibrations reverberating through the sleek command vessel, Halcyon Star. Kai Drellan, a man who had spent half his life navigating between hostile stars, felt the shudder down to his bones. He leaned back in his captain's chair, fingers gripping the cold alloy armrests. Outside the reinforced glass of the observation window, stars blurred as the ship tilted sharply, emergency maneuver thrusters firing. Status report, Kai barked. Around him, the bridge was a riot of lights and sound sirens, flashing red warnings, and the frenzied movements of his crew. Beside him, Marin Lear, his first officer and a woman known for her ice-cold composure, accessed the data panels. Contact at Sector 6. Sensors confirm one inbound Aclarian destroyer. No demands, no warning. Her tone held a brittle edge. Looks like a raid. They're getting bolder, Kai muttered, teeth clenched. The Aclarians were a notorious band of raiders and enforcers for the Galactic Tribunal, a conglomeration of powerful alien factions that controlled trade and kept an iron grip on dissent. To most, their approach meant capitulation or death. Kai was not one of those people. Bring us about, he ordered. Arm the forward cannons. Let them see that we won't run. Marin nodded, eyes gleaming with the thrill of battle. But just as her hand hovered over the weapons controls, a new signal appeared on the screen, a swirling crimson anomaly. The room fell silent. "Oh no," whispered and signed Tarek, the youngest crew member. "It's here." In every corner of known space, legends spoke of it, a creature older than stars, with jaws that could snap ships in two. It had no name, no known origin, and wherever it went, only silence followed. The Galactic Tribunal considered it an unstoppable threat, a living extinction event. The Halcyon Star's crew had just made first contact. Kai felt the icy fingers of dread curl around his spine as the creature's silhouette emerged from the void. Clusters of overlapping scales, spined and glistening, wrapped around a serpentine frame larger than a dreadnought. Burning orange eyes pierced the blackness, their gaze ancient and unyielding. The Aclarian destroyer, prepared moments ago to attack, suddenly fired its engines in retreat, anything to escape. But it was too late. The Predator's form lashed through the darkness, a blur of primal terror. Massive jaws crushed the Aclarian ship, tearing through metal like paper, leaving debris and silence in its wake. On the bridge of the Halcyon Star, no one moved. No one breathed. The creature lingered, hovering, as if deciding whether to turn its attention to them. Then, to their collective shock, it approached. Massive eyes fixed on Kai through the observation window, and an electric charge filled the air. Kai's breath caught in that moment. He felt seen, truly seen, by something impossibly vast and intelligent. What he saw in those eyes was not malice, but curiosity. He stood against every instinct, screaming to stay still. "Open a comm line," he said, voice trembling. Captain Marin hissed. "Do it," he repeated. The static crackled, and then a low, resonant hum filled the room, a vibration that resonated in bones and made the crew wince. Kai closed his eyes and spoke, unsure if this would be his last act. "We mean no harm. We seek no fight." The creature's eyes blinked slowly. It leaned closer, snout nearly pressing against the glass. And then, without warning, it emitted a deep, rolling growl that somehow impossibly carried words. "Small one, different." Kai swallowed. "What do you mean?" "The others fear. You do not." Kai opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He forced himself to breathe. Why would fear stop me from speaking? Fear rules them, not you. There was a pause, heavy and expectant. Kai felt as if the fate of everyone he knew hung in the balance. He chose his words carefully. "You eat ships. Ships. Blood. Anything that breaks." The creature's fanged maw twisted upward, a chilling imitation of a smile. "Yet you do not flee." "No," Kai said, his voice firming. "I don't." Curious, it rumbled. "Very curious." The crew stared, silent, afraid to move. The being's head tilted, as if considering something. Then, with a swish of its colossal tail, it spun into the void once more, leaving only a lingering vibration and scattered debris where the Aclarian destroyer had been. The bridge erupted with noise shouts, gasps of disbelief, and Marin's hand clutching Kai's arm, knuckles white. "We survived," she whispered. "Kai, we survived." But Kai could only stare out into the emptiness where the creature had gone, a realization gnawing at him. They had survived, yes, but they had also been noticed. In the days that followed, word of their encounter spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Tribunal did not believe in chance. They declared the Halcyon Star under watch, interrogating its crew for any signs of collusion with what they now called the Devourer. The Tribunal's paranoia knew no bounds, and their agents moved quickly. They demanded explanations. They wanted assurances. They whispered of exterminating anyone who threatened the balance of power. To the Tribunal, the human alliance with the Predator was unthinkable. Kai was summoned before a tribunal council on the station Solaris Prime, a monolithic structure hanging in orbit above a dead world. It was there, beneath the glare of alien luminaries, that he realized how deep their fear went. Rows of tribunal representatives, a cacophony of scales, fur, tentacles, and metal stared down at him. A Dravian elder, all green scales and glimmering jewels, spoke first. "Explain how you survived the Devourer." "We didn't fight," Kai said simply. A flicker of disbelief crossed the elder's features. "You imply cowardice saved you." "I imply understanding saved us," Kai corrected, meeting the alien's gaze with a steel-like resolve. "We showed we were no threat." Gasps echoed across the chamber. To show weakness was unthinkable in the tribunal's culture of dominance. The elder leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "And now you claim friendship." "No," Kai said, though he sensed this was where the tide was going. "But perhaps it recognized something in us that you refused to see." "Blasphemy," hissed another delegate, this one with eyes like blackened coals. "It is an animal." "Is it?" Kai challenged, voice ringing through the hall. It spoke. The silence stretched, tense and brittle. That single claim set the entire chamber aflame with debate. Only one thing mattered to the tribunal control. A creature that could think, choose, or communicate was more than a monster. It was a force that threatened everything they believed in. The humans, weak, stubborn humans, had conversed with it. Worse still, the creature had spared them. Kai was marched from the hall with the accusations ringing in his ears. In their fear, the tribunal decreed the humans be monitored, restricted. Their trade routes, alliances, and even cultural exchanges were curtailed. Under the guise of security, they were isolated, weakened, but not broken. Kai returned to the Halcyon Star a marked man. Shadows lurked at every turn, old allies pulled away, whispering of danger. Yet in that isolation, Kai saw something else, a chance to reach out. The Predator had come once, it would come again. Weeks passed, then months. Tribunal ships encircled their territory, waiting for a misstep. But Kai had a plan, a gambit that would risk everything. He studied every known legend, every detail of the creature's movements. He sought not just to survive, but to understand why it had spared them, and what it truly wanted. Then came the moment out beyond the distant belt of Jurul, where ancient black holes marked dead zones of travel. The creature emerged again. This time, Kai was ready. He opened communication the moment it appeared. "I need to know. Why me?" The creature paused, hovering as before. Weakness. Not weakness. Change. "You think we can change?" Kai asked, his voice carrying both hope and desperation. The creature's eyes glowed brighter. "Not think. No." "Then help us," Kai said, unflinching. "Prove that you're more than they fear." The being's growl was low, almost contemplative. "Help? No. Survive together? Yes." Kai's heart pounded. There, in the cold vastness, a fragile thread of understanding wove between man and monster. It was not an alliance, not yet, but it was more than any other species had managed. To be feared was one thing. To offer hope to change the galaxy's deadliest predator was something the Tribunal would never forgive. The atmosphere on the Halcyon Star was heavy, charged with anticipation. Weeks had passed since Kai's second encounter with the Devourer. The crew moved with caution, as if every step could invite cosmic judgment, but beneath their wariness was something else, an ember of resolve. Their fate was no longer bound solely to their own ingenuity, but to a being that defied every known law of survival. "We need to act fast," Marin said, her voice low as she stood with Kai in the ship's war room. Holographic star charts surrounded them, glowing lines mapping their territory's shrinking borders. The tribunal was tightening its noose. Kai's jaw tightened. "I know. If they think we're allies with that thing, they'll annihilate us." "They already think that," he countered, eyes cold with the knowledge of betrayal. Former allies who had shared trade routes, intelligence, and bonds built over decades had turned their backs, fearing the tribunal's wrath. The only way forward is to prove them wrong, or to change the rules. Marin gave him a long, searching look. "You're serious?" "I am." "Then what's the next move?" He stepped closer to the star chart, his finger tracing an arc through the Jural belt. "We give it a reason to come back." The weight of his words settled between them. "And we showed the galaxy what real terror looks like when it's on our side." The plan was perilous, a trap laid not for their cosmic ally but for the tribunal. Kai knew that if he were to stand any chance of survival, he'd need leverage powerful enough to force even the galaxy's oldest, most stubborn factions to pause. And there was no leverage greater than fear. A month later, the Halcyon Star and 3 other human ships drifted near the derelict remains of the Monstrous Gate, an abandoned star station once used for interstellar trade. Its metal husk creaked in the vacuum of space, but within its twisting corridors, Kai's crew set up beacons, amplifying distress signals meant to draw the tribunal's attention. The bait was simple, a human convoy appearing vulnerable, stranded, and ripe for interrogation. 3 incoming tribunal vessels, reported Turek from the bridge, his young face pale but determined. "No diplomatic pings. They're not here to talk." "They're here to make an example of us," Marin muttered. "Exactly," Kai replied, his eyes fixed on the sensors. "Maintain our position. They need to believe we're cornered." The minutes crawled by. The tribunal ships closed the distance, slow and deliberate. Their presence alone was enough to cause the hair on the back of Kai's neck to stand. Each vessel bristled with weaponry, unmatched firepower ready to reduce them to ash. Then it happened. A flicker on the long-range sensors. A ripple that did not belong. It was like watching the edge of a storm forming in an otherwise calm sky. The Devourer had arrived. "Hold steady," Kai commanded, though every instinct screamed at him to flee. The tension on the bridge was suffocating as the Predator emerged, a shadow blotting out stars, its scales glinting with energy that defied comprehension. It was far larger than their previous encounters, more monstrous than memory served, and its eyes glowed with a predatory awareness. The tribunal's response was instant. They fired, torrents of plasma and antimatter streaking through space, a barrage that would obliterate anything caught in its path. But the Devourer moved like a phantom. Its mass twisted and flowed with an eerie fluidity, absorbing the initial strike before retaliating in a way that sent waves of panic through the tribunal's ranks. Massive jaws snapped, and one tribunal vessel vanished into nothingness, a horrifying spectacle of raw, unstoppable power. The other ships broke formation, desperate to retreat. Panic, pure and unfiltered, spread like wildfire. And then the Devourer paused, its orange eyes shifting toward the Halcyon Star. Silence fell over the bridge. "Now," Kai said, his voice steady, broadcast. Across every comm channel, to every nearby system, the Halcyon Star transmitted a singular message. Kai's face appeared, flanked by his crew, the tension evident in every line of their bodies. "To the tribunal and all its loyal subjects," Kai said, his voice as unyielding as iron. "For too long, you have crushed and controlled, wielding fear as your weapon. But fear cuts both ways." The image of the Devourer flashed behind him, a monstrous reminder. "This is no mindless beast, it is more. We have spoken with it, survived it. If you come for us again, remember what you saw today. We are not alone, and we will not bow." The transmission cut off, and the galaxy shuddered. Not everyone celebrated their gambit. Within human territories, leaders divided. Some hailed Kai as a savior, a man who had stared down death and forced the galaxy's hand. Others saw him as reckless, a provocateur courting extinction. Tension simmered as factions formed, old grudges resurfacing. There were whispers of mutiny, plots to deliver Kai to the tribunal as a sacrificial lamb to prove humanity's innocence. Among those plotting against him was Admiral Larn, a bitter veteran who had long coveted command. Larn made his move during a council session aboard the neutral station Eden's Rest, accusing Kai of endangering their entire race. "You've turned us into targets," Larn spat, pointing a gnarled finger. "You've tied our fate to a monster we can't control." "We were already targets," Kai countered, his gaze icy. "I'm giving us a fighting chance." "A chance? You think that creature cares about us? It's using you." "Then let's make sure it's mutual," Kai shot back. "This isn't about trust. It's about survival." "By making us the galaxy's enemy," Larn demanded. "You've doomed us all." The council erupted in argument, threats exchanged and alliances splintering. In the chaos, Larn saw his opening a coded signal to tribunal agents secretly monitoring the station. Moments later, alarms blared. A tribunal strike force arrived, weapons primed, their target clear: Kai Drellan. But Kai had planned for betrayal. Hidden within the station's sublevels were loyalists, armed and prepared. As conflict erupted, he fought with the desperation of a man who knew there was no escape, only survival. Fire lit the corridors, screams echoing as factions clashed. Blood stained the metal floors, and victory seemed impossible. Until the walls trembled, and an all-too-familiar presence filled the air. The Devourer breached the station, its massive form impossible within the confines, yet somehow fitting. It moved with precision, its monstrous eyes focused not on destroying all but on protecting one. For the first time, it acted with intent, not as a predator but as an ally. In the aftermath, bodies lay strewn, smoke curling into the air. Larn was dead, along with many who had sided with him. The tribunal agents who survived fled, terror etched into their features. Kai stood, bloodied and exhausted, at the creature's side. He met its gaze. "Why did you help us?" The rumbling growl that followed was filled with more than words. It held something like understanding. "You small ones, learn, change, different, together better." Kai knew then that this bond was no longer about survival, it was about transformation. The galaxy had cast them as prey. Together they would rewrite the story. The tribunal's response was swift and brutal. In a single week, dozens of worlds allied with humanity were attacked, their defenses crushed. Propaganda flooded the networks, painting the humans as traitors who had unleashed a cosmic horror. Fear drove species to compliance, surrendering their autonomy for safety beneath the tribunal's iron rule. But for every betrayal, a new ally emerged. The oppressed, the downtrodden, those with no hope saw what Kai offered: a chance to fight back, no matter the odds. Together with the Devourer, they built a coalition forged from necessity and desperation. War loomed, its shadow stretching across the stars. Kai stood at the helm of his ship, staring out at the void. "We need to be ready," he said to Marin, who had remained at his side through every trial. "They won't stop until they've broken us." "They can't break what they don't understand," Marin replied, a fierce light in her eyes. "We have something they'll never have." Kai nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. Fearless allies. And somewhere in the distance, the Devourer prowled the stars, its gaze forever watching, a reminder that sometimes the deadliest monsters were the ones who chose to protect. The quiet before the battle was a cruel illusion. From the command deck of the Halcyon Star, Kai Drellan watched as their hastily assembled fleet drifted into position. The void was alight with the faint glimmer of hundreds of vessels, human ships, defected outcasts from the tribunal's rule, and rogue factions that had joined their cause. They were all there because of one man's gamble to stand with the galaxy's deadliest predator and force the tribunal to cower. "Status report," Kai demanded, his voice steady despite the weight pressing on his chest. "Fleet is ready," Captain Marin Lur replied, her focus on the tactical display. Her eyes betrayed no fear, though they both knew the odds. "The Devourer is maintaining its distance, but it's here." "Good," Kai said, the word clipped. He couldn't afford to second-guess their monstrous ally. And the tribunal. "They're coming," Marin said grimly. "All of them." The sensors flared to life, marking hundreds of incoming signatures, sleek warships, massive carriers, and weaponized platforms capable of scouring entire planets clean. The Tribunal's armada had arrived, an overwhelming force assembled to end the rebellion with finality. To them, the alliance with the Devourer was proof of humanity's dangerous ambition, and they had every intention of making it an example. Kai's jaw clenched. It's now or never. Open the comms. Across their fragile network, the scattered fleet captains, human and alien alike, appeared on the holoscreen. Each face reflected the stakes, the understanding that many would not survive this day. This is it, Kai began, his gaze hard and unyielding. They want us to scatter, to bend, to prove them right that fear is their weapon, and they alone wield it. But today we show them what fear really looks like. Marin nodded, a spark of resolve in her eyes. To victory, Captain. Or nothing at all, Kai finished. The transmission cut, and the battle began. Space erupted in chaos. The Tribunal's opening salvo tore through the darkness, energy beams and explosive charges lighting up the void. Ships burned, their metallic husks spinning away from the main clash. Kai barked orders, guiding their forces with every ounce of skill honed through years of conflict. Maintain formation. Protect the flank, he shouted as another barrage rocked the Halcyon star. We hold the line until... A deep, bone-rattling vibration interrupted him. All eyes turned as the Devourer surged into view, a force of nature manifest. Its massive form dwarfed the combatants, moving with terrifying speed and precision. It barreled through enemy formations, crushing ships in its path, and for every Tribunal vessel that fell, hope surged among their allies. For the first time, they saw that their enemy could be hurt. Focus on the weaker ships, Marin urged, her hands flying over the controls. Let the Devourer handle the heavy hitters. Kai nodded. All units, shift targets. Make this count. The battle raged on, a brutal dance of fire and desperation. The Devourer lashed out, its scales absorbing punishment that would obliterate any other being. Tribunal ships adapted, focusing fire, devising strategies to weaken it. They had studied the creature for centuries, and now their desperation lent them cunning. They struck at its weak points, drew it into traps. Captain, it's taking heavy damage, Torek warned, his voice tight with fear. Kai watched as the Devourer staggered, its roar reverberating through the void. But it fought on, tearing apart a dreadnought with a final burst of strength. It was then, in that moment of vulnerability, that the Tribunal's flagship, a monstrous vessel bristling with weaponry, closed in for the kill. No, Kai shouted. All units, cover it. It was Chaos ships diving, engines burning to intercept, but they were too late. The flagship unleashed a torrent of energy, a beam that cut through the darkness and struck the Devourer full force. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then, the void erupted in light. When the brilliance faded, the Devourer was motionless, its form drifting. A collective gasp rippled through the fleet. If it fell, so too would their fragile alliance. The Tribunal would win, and fear would reign unchallenged. But in the stillness, a faint rumble emerged, a vibration that grew, resonating in their bones. The Devourer's eyes flared open, burning brighter than ever. It moved with a fury that shook stars, breaking free of the flagship's assault and crashing into it with unimaginable force. The Tribunal's flagship splintered, a final desperate act turned to ash. The Devourer roared, a sound that carried across every comm channel, every ship. It was not just a declaration of survival, it was a promise. Together they would not bow. The Tribunal's forces broke, retreating in disarray. What had been an unthinkable alliance had become a nightmare they could not unsee. The battle was won, but its cost was too high. Scores of ships lay shattered, countless lives lost, and among the wreckage the Devourer drifted, its energy spent. Kai stood on the bridge, surrounded by silence. Victory had come, but at what price? Captain Marin whispered, breaking the quiet. We did it. We survived, Kai corrected, exhaustion weighing down every word. But this isn't over. He was right. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy's reaction was mixed. Some rallied to their cause, emboldened by their defiance. Others saw only danger, a human race willing to unleash a nightmare upon the stars. The tribunal licked its wounds, plotting, scheming. The fragile alliance they had forged was a beacon and a target. The Devourer, weakened but alive, remained by their side. It spoke less often now, its form more ethereal, as if the battle had drained some part of its being. But its eyes never wavered when they met Kai's, and in that silent gaze they shared an understanding. Marin stood beside him as they watched their fleet regroup. "Where do we go from here?" "Forward," Kai said. "The tribunal will come again? We'll be ready." "And the Devourer?" she asked, her voice soft. "Will it stay?" Kai looked at the being that had saved them, at the terror that had become their unlikely ally. "I think it already chose." He stepped forward, placing a hand on the observation glass. "Together we change everything." Years passed, and the galaxy changed. The tribunal's grip weakened as more species found courage and defiance. The alliance with the Devourer became a symbol of fear turned strength, of bonds forged in the crucible of survival. It was not an easy path. Betrayals lingered, and new dangers arose. But in every battle, every test, Kai and his allies stood firm. In the end, it was not fear that defined them, but the choice to face it. To fight, not just as humans or monsters, but as something more, as those who refused to bow. Together.